Hello, my friends. It's Indiana Holmes for another night of story time. And tonight we continue with the Dashiell Hammett novel, The Red Harvest. And we begin with Chapter 3, Dinah Brand. At the First National Bank, I got a hold of an assistant cashier named Albury, a nice-looking blonde youngster of 25 or so. "I certified the check for Wilson," he said, after I had explained what I was up to. "It was drawn to the order of Dinah Brand, $5,000. "Know who she is?" "Oh, yes, I know her." "Mind telling me what you know about her?" "Not at all. I'd be glad to. But I'm already 8 minutes overdue at a meeting with—" "Can you have dinner with me tonight? And give it to me then?" "That'll be fine," he said. 7 o'clock at Great Western. "Right-o." "I'll run along and let you get to your meeting. But tell me, has she an account here?" "Yes, and she deposited the check this morning. The police have it." "Yeah? And where does she live?" 1232 Hurricane Street." I said, well, and see you tonight, and went away. My next stop was in the office of the Chief of Police in City Hall. Noonan, the chief, was a fat man with twinkling greenish eyes set in a round, jovial face. When I told him what I was doing in the city, he seemed glad of it. He gave me a handshake and a cigar and a chair. "Now," he said, when we were all settled, "tell me who turned the trick." "The secret's safe with me." "You and me both," he said, cheerfully, through smoke. "But what do you guess?" "I'm no good at guessing, especially when I haven't got the facts." "'Twon't take long to give you all the facts there is," he said. "Wilson got a $5,000 check in Dinah Brand's name certified yesterday, just before the bank closing. Last night, he was killed by slugs from a .32, less than a block from her house. People that heard the shooting saw a man and a woman bending over the remains. Bright and early this morning, the said Dinah Brand's deposits, the said check, in the said bank. Well, who is this Dinah Brand?" The chief dumped the ash of his cigar in the center of the desk, flourished the cigar in his fat hand, and said, "A soiled dove, as the fellow says, a deluxe hustler, a big league gold digger." "Gone up against her yet?" "No, there's a couple of slants to be taken at first. We're keeping an eye on her and waiting. This, I've told you, is under the hat." "Yeah, now listen to this." And I told him what I'd seen and heard while waiting in Donald Wilson's house the previous night. When I had finished, the chief bunched his fat mouth, whistled softly, and exclaimed, "Man, that's an interesting thing you've been telling me. So it was blood on her slipper, and she said her husband wouldn't be home?" "That's what I took it for," I said to the first question, and "yeah" to the second. "Have you done any talking to her since then?" he asked. "No. I was up that way this morning, but a young fellow named Thaler went into the house ahead of me, so I put my visit off." "Grease us twice." His green eyes glittered happily. "Are you telling me the Whisperer was there?" "Yeah." He threw his cigar on the floor, stood up, planted his fat hands on his desk, leaned over them toward me, oozing delight from every pore. "Man, you've done something," he purred. "Dinah Brand is the Whisperer's woman. Let me and you just go out and kind of talk to the window." We climbed out the chief's car in front of Mrs. Wilson's residence. The chief stopped for a second with one foot on the bottom step, took a look at the black crepe hanging over the bell. Then he said, "Well, what's got to be done's got to be done," and we went up the steps. Mrs. Wilson wasn't anxious to see us, but people usually see the police chief of police if he insists. This one did. We were taken upstairs to where Donald Wilson's window sat in the library. She was in black, her eyes blue, had frost in them. Noonan and I took turns mumbling condolences, and then he began. We just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. For instance, like, where'd you go last night? She looked disagreeably at me, then back at the chief, frowned, and spoke haughtily. May I ask why I am being questioned in this manner? I wondered how many times I had heard that question, word for word and tone for tone, while the chief, disregarding it, went on amiably. And then there was something about one of your shoes being stained, the right one, or maybe the left. Anyways, it was one or the other. A muscle began twitching in her upper lip. Was that all? The chief asked me. Before I could answer, I made a chuckling noise with his tongue and turned his genial face to the woman again. I almost forgot. There was a matter of how you knew your husband wouldn't be home. She got up, unsteadily, holding the back of her chair with one white hand. I'm sure you'll excuse... Shh. All right. The chief made a big-hearted gesture with one beefy paw. We don't want to bother you. Just where you went, and about the shoe, and how you knew he wasn't coming back. And come to think of it, there's another. What Thaler wanted here this morning. Mrs. Wilson sat down again, very rigidly. The chief looked at her. A smile that tried to be tender made funny lines and humps in his fat face. After a little while, her shoulders began to relax, her chin went lower, a curve came in her back. I put a chair facing her and sat on it. You'll have to tell us, Mrs. Wilson, I said, making it as sympathetic as I could. These things have got to be explained. Do you think I have anything to hide? She asked defiantly, sitting up straight and stiff, turning each word out precisely, except that the S's were a bit slurred. I did go out. The stain was blood. I knew my husband was dead. Thaler came to see me about my husband's death. Are your questions answered now? We knew that, I said. We're asking you to explain them. She stood up again, said angrily, I dislike your manner. I refuse to submit to... Noonan said, That's perfectly all right, Mrs. Wilson. Only we'll have to ask you to go down to the hall with us. She turned her back to him, took a deep breath, and threw words at me. While we were sitting, we were waiting here for Donald, and I had a telephone call. It was a man who wouldn't give his name. He said Donald had gone to the home of a woman named Dinah Brand with a check for $5,000. He gave me her address. Then I drove out there and waited down the street in the car until Donald came out. While I was waiting there, I saw Max Thaler, whom I knew by sight. He went to the woman's house, but didn't go in. He went away. Then Donald came out and walked down the street. He didn't see me. I didn't want him to. I intended to drive home, get here before he came. I had just started the engine when I heard shots, and I saw Donald fall. I got out of the car and ran over to him. He was dead. I was frantic. Then Thaler came. He said if I were found there, they would say I killed him. He made me run back to the car and drive home. Tears were in her eyes, though the water of her eyes studied my face, apparently trying to learn how I took the story. I didn't say anything. She asked, Is that what you wanted? Practically, Noonan said. He had walked around to one side. What did Thaler say this morning? He urged me to keep quiet. Her voice had become small and flat. He said either or both of us would be suspected if anyone learned we were there, because Donald had been killed coming from the woman's house after giving her money. Where did the shots come from? The chief asked. I don't know. I didn't see anything except when I looked out and saw Donald falling. Did Thaler fire them? No, she said quickly. Then her mouth and eyes spread. She put a hand on her breast. I don't know. I didn't think so. And he said he didn't. I don't know where he was. I don't know why I never thought he might have. What do you think now? Noonan asked. He may have. The chief winked at me, an athletic wink, in which all his facial muscles took part, and cast a little farther back. And you don't know who called you up? He wouldn't tell me his name. Didn't recognize his voice? No. What kind of voice was it? He talked in an undertone, as if afraid of being overheard. I had difficulty understanding him. He whispered. The chief's mouth hung open at the last sound it left. His greenish eyes sparkled greedily between their pads of fat. Yes, a hoarse whisper. The chief shut his mouth with a click, opened it again to say persuasively, "You've heard Thaler talk." The woman started and stared, big-eyed, from the chief to me. "It was he!" she cried. "It was he!" Robert Albury, the young assistant cashier of the First National Bank, was sitting in the lobby when I returned to the Great Western Hotel. We went up to my room, had some ice water brought, used its ice to put a chill in scotch, lemon juice, and grenadine, and then went down to the dining room. "Now tell me about the lady," I said when we were working on the soup. "Have you seen her yet?" he asked. "Not yet. But you've heard something about her." "Only that she's an expert in her line." "She is," he agreed. "I suppose you'll see her. You'll be disappointed at first. Then, without being able to say how or when it happened, you'll find you've forgotten your disappointment, and the first thing you'll know, you'll be telling her your life story and all your troubles and hopes." He laughed with boyish shyness. "And then you're caught, absolutely caught." "Thanks for the warning. How'd you come to this information?" He grinned shamefacedly across his suspended soup spoon and confessed, "I bought it." "Then I suppose it cost you plenty. I hear she likes dinero." "She's money mad, all right, but somehow you don't mind it. She's so thoroughly mercenary, so frankly greedy, that there's nothing disagreeable about it. You'll understand what I mean when you know her. Maybe. Mind telling me how you happen to part with it and part with her?" "No, I don't mind. I spent it all, that's how." "Cold-blooded like that?" His face flushed a little. He nodded. "You seem to have taken it well," I said. "There's nothing else to do." The flush of his pleasant face deepened, and he spoke hesitantly. "It happens. I owe her something for it. I'm going to tell you this. I want you to see this side of her. I had a little money. After that was gone, you must remember I was young, and heads over heels. After my money was gone, there was the banks. You don't care whether I had actually done anything or was simply thinking about it. Anyway, she found it out. I never could hide anything from her, and that was the end." "She broke it off with you?" "Yes, thank God. If it hadn't been for her, you might be looking for me now for embezzlement. I owe her that." He wrinkled his forehead earnestly. "You won't say anything about this. You know what I mean. But I wanted you to know she has her good side, too. You'll hear enough about her, and the other side, too." Maybe she has, or maybe it was just that she didn't think she'd get enough to pay for the risk of being caught in a jam. He turned this over in his mind and then shook his head. "That may have had something to do with it, but not all. I gathered she was strictly pay as you enter." "How about Dan Rolfe?" he asked. "Who's he?" "He's supposed to be her brother or half-brother or something of the sort. He isn't. He's a down-and-outer, TB. He lives with her. She keeps him. She's not in love with him or anything. She simply found him somewhere and took him in." "Any more?" "There's that radical chap she used to run around with. It's not like she got much money out of him." "What's a radical chap?" "He came here back during the strike. Quint is his name." "So he was on her list?" "That's supposed to be the reason he stayed here after the strike was over." "So he's still on her list?" "No, She told me she was afraid of him. He had threatened to kill her. She seems to have had everybody on her string at one time or another, I said. Everybody she wanted, he said. And he said it seriously. Donald Wilson was the latest, I asked. I don't know, he said. I had never heard of anything about them. Had never seen anything. The chief of police had us try to find any checks he may have issued to her before yesterday, but we found nothing. Nobody could remember ever having seen anything. Who was her last customer, so far as you know? Lately, I've seen her around town quite often with a chap named Thaler. He runs a couple of gambling houses here. They call him Whisperer. You've probably heard of him. At 8:30, I left young Albury and set out for Miner's Hotel in Forest Street. Half a block from the hotel, I met Bill Quint. Hello, I hailed him. I was on my way down to see you. He stopped in front of me, looked me up and down, growled, So you're the gumshoe. That's bunk, I complained. I come all the way down here to rope you, and you smarted up. What do you want to know now? He asked. About Donald Wilson. You knew him, didn't you? I knew him. Very well. No. What did you think of him? He pursed his lips, his gray lips, by forcing breath between them, and made a noise like a rag tearing and said, A lousy liberal. You know Dinah Brand? I asked. I know her. His neck was shorter and thicker than it had been. Think she killed Wilson? Sure. It's a kick in the pants. Then you didn't. Hell yes, he said. The pair of us together. Got any more questions? Yeah, but I'll save my breath. You'd only lie to me. I walked back to Broadway, found a taxi, and told the driver, Take me to 1232 Hurricane Street. Chapter 4. Hurricane Street. My destination was a gray frame cottage. When I rang the bell, the door was opened by a thin man with a tired face that had no color in it except for a red spot the size of a $50 high on each cheek. This, I thought, is the lunger, Dan Rolfe. I'd like to meet Miss Brand, I told him. What name shall I tell her? His voice was a sick man's, an educated man's. It wouldn't mean anything to her. I want to see her about Wilson's death. He looked at me with level, tired, dark eyes and said, Yes. I'm from the San Francisco office of the Continental Detective Agency. We're interested in the murder. That's nice of you, he said ironically. Come in. I went into a ground floor room where a young woman sat at a table that had a lot of papers on it. Some of the papers were financial service bulletins, stock and bond market forecasts. One was a racing chart. The room was disorderly, cluttered up. There were too many pieces of furniture in it, and none of them seemed to be in the proper place. Dinah, the lunger, introduced me. This gentleman has come from San Francisco on behalf of the Continental Detective Agency to inquire into Mr. Donald Wilson's demise. The young woman got up, kicked a couple of newspapers out of her way, and came to me with one hand out. She was an inch or two taller than I, which made her about 5'8". She had a broad-shouldered, full-breasted, round-hipped body and big muscular legs. The hand she gave me was soft, warm, strong. Her face was the face of a girl of 25, already showing hands of wear. Little lines crossed the corners of her big, ripe mouth. Fainter lines were beginnings, and they were beginning to make nets around her thick eyelashes and eyes. They were large eyes, blue, and a bit bloodshot. Her coarse hair, brown, needed trimming, and it was parted crookedly. One side of her upper lip had been ruffed higher up than the other. Her dress was a partly unbecoming wine color, and it gapped here and there down one side, where she had neglected to snap the fasteners, or they had popped open. There was a run down by the front of her left stocking leg. This was Dinah Brand, who took her pick of Poisonville's men, according to what I had been told. His father sent you, of course, she said, while she moved a pair of lizard skin slippers and a cup and a saucer off a chair to make room for me. Her voice was soft and lazy. I told her the truth. Donaldson sent for me. I was waiting to see him while he was being killed. Don't go away, Dan, she called to Rolf. He came back into the room. She returned to her place at the table. He sat on the opposite side, leaning his thin face on a thin hand, looking at me without interest. She drew her brows together, making 2 creases between them, and asked, You mean he knew someone meant to kill him? I don't know. He didn't say what he wanted. Maybe just help in the reform campaign. But do you... I made a complaint. It's no fun being a sleuth when somebody steals your stuff, does all the questioning. I like to find out what's going on, she said, a little laugh gurgling down her throat. I'm that way too. For instance, I'd like to know why you made him have the check certified. Very casually, Dan Rolf shifted in his chair, leaning back, lowering his thin hands out of sight below the table's edge. So you found out about that? Dinah Brand asked. She crossed her left leg over her right and looked down, her eyes focused on the run on her stocking. Honest to God, I'm going to stop wearing them, she complained. I'm going barefooted. I paid $5 for these socks yesterday. Now, look at the damn things. Every day, runs. It's no secret, I said. I mean, the check, not the runs. Noonan's got it. She looked at Rolf, who stopped watching me long enough to nod once. If you talked my language, she drawled, looking narrow-eyed at me, I might be able to give you some help. Maybe if I knew what it was. Money, she explained. The more the better. I like it. I became proverbial. Money saved is money earned. I could save you money and grief. That doesn't mean anything to me, she said, though it sounds like it's meant to. The police haven't asked you anything about the check. She shook her head no. I said, Noonan's figuring on hanging the rap on you, as well as on Whisper. Don't scare me, she lisped. I'm only a child. Noonan knows that Thaler knew about the check. He knows that Thaler came here while Wilson was here, but didn't get in. He knows that Thaler was hanging around the neighborhood when Wilson was shot. He knows that Thaler and a woman were seen bending over the dead man. The girl picked up a pencil from the table and thoughtfully scratched her cheek with it. The pencil made a curly black line over the rouge. Rolf's eyes lost their weariness. They were bright, feverish, fixed on mine. He leaned forward, but kept his hands out of sight below the table. Those things, he said, concern Thaler, not Miss Brand. Thaler and Miss Brand aren't strangers, I said. Wilson brought a $5,000 check here and was killed leaving. That way, Miss Brand might have trouble cashing it. If Wilson hadn't been thoughtful enough to get it certified. My God, the girl protested. If I'd been going to kill him, I'd have done it here where nobody could have seen it, or waited until he got out of sight of the house. What kind of dumb onion do you take me for? I'm not sure you killed him, I said. I'm not sure that the fat chief means to hang it on you. What are you trying to do? She asked. Learn who killed him, not who could have or who might have, but who did. I could give you some help, she said, but there'd have to be something in it for me. Safety, I reminded her, but she shook her head. I mean, it would have to get me something in a financial way. It'd be worth something to you, and you ought to pay something, even if not a fortune. Can't be done, I grinned at her. Forget the bankroll and go in for charity. Pretend I'm Bill Quint. Dan Rolfe, stared up from his chair, lips as white as the rest of his face. He sat down again when the girl laughed a lazy, good-natured laugh. He thinks I didn't make any profit out of Bill, Dan. She leaned over and put her hand on my knee. Suppose you knew far enough ahead that a company's employees were going to strike, and then far enough ahead when they were going to call the strike off. Could you take that info to someone in the capital, to the stock market, and do yourself some good playing with the company's stock? You bet you could. She wound up triumphantly. So don't go around thinking that Bill didn't pay his way. You've been spoiled, I said. What in the name of God is the use of being so tight? She demanded. It's not like it had to come out of your pocket. You've got an expense account, haven't you? I didn't say anything. She frowned at me, at the run in her stocking, and at Rolfe. Then she said to him, maybe he'd loosen up if he had a drink. The thin man got up and went out of the room. She pointed and pouted at me, prodded my shin with her toe, and said, it's not so much money. It's the principle of the thing. If a girl's got something that's worth something to somebody, she's a boob if she doesn't collect. I grinned. Why don't you be a good guy? She begged. Dan Rolfe came in with a siphon, a bottle of gin, some lemons, and a bowl of cracked ice. We had a drink apiece. The lunger went away. The girl and I wrangled over the money question while we had more drinks. I kept trying to keep the conversation on Thaler and Wilson. She kept switching it to the money she deserved. It went on that way until the gin bottle was empty. My watch said 1:15. She chewed a piece of lemon peel and said for the 13th or 14th time, it won't come out of your pocket. What do you care? It's not the money, I said. It's the principle of the thing. She made a face at me and put her glass where she thought the table was. She was 8 inches wrong. I don't remember if the glass broke when it hit the floor or what happened to it. I do remember that I was encouraged by her missing the table. Another thing. I opened up a new argumentative line. I'm not sure I'm really needing whatever you can tell me. If I have to get along without it, I think I can. It'll be nice if you can, but don't forget I'm the last person who saw him alive, except whoever killed him. Wrong, I said. His wife saw him come out, walk away, and fall. His wife? She was sitting in a coupe down the street. How did she know he was here? She says Thaler phoned her, and her husband had come here with the check. You're trying to kid me, the girl said. Max couldn't have known it. I'm telling you what Mrs. Wilson told Noonan and me. The girl spit what was left of the lemon peel on the floor, further disarranged her hair by running her fingers through it, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and slapped the table. All right, Mr. Know-it-all, she said. I'm going to play with you. You can think it's not going to cost you anything, but I'll get mine before we're through. You think I won't? She challenged me, peering at me as if I were a block away. This was no time to revive the money argument, so I said, I hope you do. I think I said it 3 or 4 times, quite earnestly. I will. Now listen to me. You're drunk. I'm drunk. And I'm just exactly drunk enough to tell you anything you want to know. That's the kind of girl I am. If I like a person, I'll tell them anything. Anything they want to know. Just ask me. Go ahead, ask me. I did. What did Wilson give you $5,000 for? For fun. She leaned back to laugh. Then, listen, he was hunting for a scandal. I had some of it, some affidavits and some things that I thought might be good for a piece of change someday. I'm a girl that likes to pick up a little jack when she can, so I had put these things away. When Donald began going after scalps, I let him know that I had these things and that they were for sale. I gave him enough of a peep at them to let him know they were good. And they were good. Then we talked how much. He wasn't as tight as you. Nobody ever was. But he was a little bit close. So the bargain hung fire till yesterday. Then I gave him the rush, phoned him, told him I had another customer for the stuff, and that if he wanted it, he'd have to show up that night with either 5,000 smacks in cash or a certified check. That was hooey, but he hadn't been around much, so he fell for it. Why 10 o'clock? I asked. Why not? That's as good a time as any other. The main thing on the deal like that is to give them a definite time. Now, you want to know why it had to be cash or a certified check? All right, I'll tell you. I'll tell you anything you want to know. That's the kind of girl I am. Always was. She went on that way for 5 minutes, telling me in detail just which and what sort of girl she was, and always had been, and why. I yes'd her until I got a chance to cut in with, all right, now, why did it have to be a certified check? She shut one eye, wagged a forefinger at me, and said, so he couldn't stop payment because he couldn't have used the stuff I sold him. It was good, all right. It was too good. It would have put his old man in jail with the rest of them. It would have nailed Papa Eliu tighter than anyone else. I laughed with her while I tried to keep my head above the gin I had guzzled. Who else would it nail? I asked. The whole damn lot of them. She waved her hand. Max, Lou Yard, Pete Noonan, Eliu Wilson, the whole damn lot of them. Did Max Thaler know what you were doing? Of course not. Nobody but Donald Wilson. Sure of that? Sure, I'm sure. You don't think I was going around bragging about it ahead of time, do you? Who do you think knows about it now? I don't care, she said. It was only a joke on him. He couldn't have used the stuff. Do you think the birds whose secrets you sold will use or see anything funny in it? Noonan trying to hang the killing on you, and Thaler. That means he found the stuff in Donald Wilson's pocket. They all thought Eliu was using his son to break them, didn't they? Yes, sir. Yes, she said. And I'm the one who thinks the same thing. You're probably wrong, but it doesn't matter. If Noonan found the things you sold to Donald Wilson in his pocket and learned you had sold them to him, why shouldn't he have added that up? And I mean, you and your friend Thaler have gone over to old Eliu's house and old Eliu's side instead. He can see that old Eliu would be hurt as much as anybody else. What's this junk you sold him? They built a new city hall 3 years ago, she said, and none of them lost any money on it. If Noonan's got the papers, he'll pretty soon find out that they tied as much on old Eliu or more than on anybody else. That doesn't make any difference. He'll take it for granted that the old man had found out himself. Take my word for it, sister. Noonan and his friends think you and Thaler and Eliu are double-crossing them. I don't give a damn what they think, she said ostensibly. It was only a joke. That's all it was meant for. That's all it was. That's good, I growled. You can now go to the gallows with a clear conscience. Have you seen Thaler since the murder? No, but Max didn't kill him, if that's what you think, even if he was around. Why? Lots of reasons. First place, Max wouldn't have done it himself. He'd have had somebody else do it. He'd have been way off on an alibi, so nobody could shake him. Second place, Max carries a .38, and anybody he sent to do the job would have had that much of a gun or more. What kind of gunman uses a .32? Then who did it? I've told you. All I know, she said. I've told you too much. I stood up and said, "No, you've told me just exactly enough. You mean to think you know who killed him?" "Yeah. There's a couple of things I have to cover before I make the pinch." Who?" She stood up, suddenly almost sober, tugging at my lapels. "Tell me who did it." "Not now." "Be a good guy." "Not now." She let go of my lapels, put her hands behind her, and laughed in my face. "All right, keep it to yourself, and try to figure out which part of what I told you is the truth." I said, "Thanks for the part that is, anyhow, and for the gin. And if Max Thaler means anything to you, you ought to pass him the word that Noonan's trying to rib him." Chapter 5. Old Iliu Talks Sense. It was close to 2:30 in the morning when I reached the hotel. With my key, the next clerk and the night clerk gave me a memorandum that asked me to call Poplar 605, a phone number. I knew the number. It was Elio Wilson's. "When did this come?" I asked the clerk. "A little after 1. That sounded urgent. I went back to the booth and put in the call. The old man's secretary answered, asking me to come out at once. I promised to hurry, asked the clerk to get me a taxi, and went up to my room for a shot of scotch. I would rather have been cold sober, but I wasn't. If the night held more work for me, I didn't want to go with alcohol dying in me. The snifter revived me a lot. I poured more of the King George into a flask, pocketed it, and went down to the taxi. Iliu Wilson's house was lighted from top to bottom. The secretary opened the front door before I could get my finger on the button. His thin body was shivering in a pale blue pajamas and dark blue bathrobe. His thin face was full of excitement. "Hurry," he said. "Mr. Wilson is waiting, and please, will you try to persuade him to let us have the body removed?" I promised and followed him up to the old man's bedroom. Old Iliu was in bed as before, but now a black automatic pistol lay on the covers close to his pink hands. As soon as I appeared, he took his head off the pillows, sat upright, and barked at me. "Have you got as much guts as you've got gall?" His face was unhealthily dark red. The film was gone from my eyes. They were hard and hot. I let his question wait a while I looked at the corpse on the floor between the door and the bed. A short, thick-set man in brown eyes lay on his back with dead eyes staring at the ceiling from under the visor of a gray cap. A piece of his jaw had been knocked off. His chin was tilted to show where another bullet had gone through a tie and collar to make a hole in his neck. One arm was bent under him. The other held a blackjack as big as a milk bottle. There was a lot of blood. I looked up from the mess to the old man. His grin was vicious and idiotic. "You are a great talker," he said. "I know that. A two-fisted, you'll-be-damned man with your words. But have you got anything else? Have you got the guts to match your gall? Or is it just language you've got?" There was no use in trying to get along with the old boy. I scowled, and reminded him. "Didn't I tell you not to bother me unless you wanted to talk sense for a change? You did, lad." There was a foolish sort of triumph in his voice. "And I'll talk to you and talk to your sense. I want a man to clean this pigsty of Poisonville up for me, to smoke out the rats. Little big and little small. It's a man's job. Are you a man?" "What's the use of getting poetic about it?" I growled. "If you've got a fairly honest piece of work to be done in my line, and you want to pay a decent price, maybe I'll take it on. But a lot of foolishness about smoking rats and pig pens doesn't mean anything to me." "All right. I want Personville emptied of its crooks and grafters. Is that plain enough language for you?" "You didn't want that this morning," I said. "Why do you want it now?" The explanation was profane and lengthy and given to me in a loud and blustering voice. The substance of it was that he had built Personville brick by brick with his own hands. He was going to keep it or wipe it off the side of the hill. Nobody could threaten him in his own city, no matter who they were. He had to let some of them alone. But when they started telling him, Ilya Wilson, what he had to do, what he couldn't do, what he would show them who was who, he brought the speech to an end by pointing at the corpse and boasting, "That'll show 'em there's still a sting in the old man." I wished I were sober. His clowning puzzled me. I couldn't put my finger on something behind it. "Your playmates sent him?" I asked, nodding at the end of the dead man. "I only talked to him with this," he said, patting the automatic on his bed. "But I reckon they did." "How did it happen?" "It happened simple enough. I heard the door opening, and I switched on the light, and there he was, and I shot him, and there he is." "What time?" "It was about 1 o'clock." "And you've let him lie there all this time?" "That I have." The old man laughed savagely and began blustering again. "Does the sight of a dead man turn your stomach, or is it the spirit you're afraid of?" I laughed at him. Now I had it. The old boy was scared stiff. Fright was the something behind his clowning. That was why he blustered, and why he wouldn't let them take the body away. He wanted it there to look at, to keep panic away, visible proof of his ability to defend himself. I knew where he stood, and I knew where I stood. "You really want me to clean it up?" I asked. I said I did, and do so. I'd have to have a free hand, no favors to anybody, run the job as I pleased, and I'd have to have a $10,000 retainer. $10,000? Why in the hell should I give you that much to a man I don't know from Adam? A man who's done nothing, I know, but talk. Be serious. When I say me, I mean the Continental. You know them. I do, and they know me, and they ought to know I'm good for. That's not the idea. These people you want taken to the cleaners were friends of yours yesterday. Maybe they will be friends again next week. I don't care about that. But I'm not playing politics for you. I'm not hiring out to help you kick them back in line with the job being called off then. If you want the job done, you'll plank down enough money to pay for a complete job. Any that's left over will be returned to you, but you're going to get a complete job or nothing. That's the way it'll have to be. Take it or leave it. I'll be damned. Well, leave it, he bawled. He let me get halfway down the stairs before he called me back. I'm an old man, he grumbled. If I was 10 years younger, he glared at me and worked his lips together. I'll give you your damn check. The authority to go through with it on my own. Yes. We'll get it done now. Where's your secretary? Wilson pushed the button on his bedside table, and the silent secretary appeared from wherever he had been hiding. I told him, Mr. Wilson wants to issue a $10,000 check to the Continental Detective Agency, and he wants to write the agency, San Francisco branch, a letter authorizing the agency to use the $10,000 investigating crime and political corruption in Personville. The letter is to state clearly that the agency is to conduct the investigation as it sees fit. The secretary looked questioningly at the old man, who frowned and ducked his round white head. But first, I told the secretary as he glided toward the door, you better phone the police that we've got a dead burglar here. Then call Mr. Wilson's doctor. The old man declared he didn't need any damn doctors. You're going to have a nice shot in the arm so you can sleep, I promised him, stepping over the corpse to take the black gun from the bed. I'm going to stay here tonight, and we'll spend most of tomorrow sifting Poisonville's affairs. The old man was tired. His voice, when he profanely and somewhat long-windedly told me what he thought of my impotence in deciding what was best for him, barely shook the windows. I took off the dead man's cap for a better look at his face. It didn't mean anything to me. I put the cap back in its place. When I straightened up the old man, he asked, moderately, "Are you going to get anywhere in your hunt for Donaldson's murderer?" "I think so. Another day ought to see it finished." "Who?" he asked. The secretary came in with the letter and the check. I gave them to the old man instead of an answer to his question. He put a shaky signature on it, and I had them folded in my pocket when the police arrived. The first copper into the room was the chief himself, Fat Noonan. He nodded amiably at Wilson, shook hands with me, and looked with twinkling greenish eyes at the dead man. "Well, well," he said. "It's a good job he did, whoever did it. Yakima Shorty. And will you look at the sap he's toting?" He kicked the blackjack out of the dead man's hand. "Big enough to sink a ship. You drop him?" he asked. "Mr. Wilson. Well, that certainly is fine." He congratulated the old man. "You saved a lot of people, a lot of troubles, including me. Pack him out, boys," he said to the 4 men behind him. The 2 in uniform picked Yakima Shorty up by his legs and armpits and went away with him, while one of the others gathered up the blackjack and the flashlight that had been under the body. If everybody did that to their prowlers, it would certainly be fine, the chief babbled on. He brought 3 cigars out of a pocket, threw one over the bed, stuck one at me, and put the other in his mouth. "I was just wondering where I could get a hold of you," he told me as he lighted up. "I got a little job ahead that I thought you might like to be in on. That's how I happened to be on tap when the rumble came." He put his mouth close to my ear and whispered, "Going to pick up Whisper. Want to go along?" "Yeah, I thought you would. Hello, Doc." He shook hands with the man who had just come in, a little plump man with a tired oval face and gray eyes that still had sleep in them. The doctor went to the bed where one of Noonan's men was asking Wilson about the shooting. I followed the secretary into the hall and asked him, "Any men in the house besides you?" "Yes, the chauffeur, the Chinese cook." "Let the chauffeur stay in the old man's room tonight. I'm going out with Noonan. I'll get back as soon as I can. I don't think there'll be any more excitement tonight here, but no matter what happens, don't leave the old man alone, and don't leave him alone with Noonan or any of Noonan's crew." The secretary's mouth and eyes popped widely. "What time did you leave Donald Wilson last night?" I asked. "You mean night before last, the night he was killed?" "Yeah, at precisely 9:30. "You were here with him from 5 o'clock till then?" "From 4:45. We went over some statements and that sort of thing in his office until nearly 8 o'clock. Then we went to Bayard's and finished our school over dinners." "He left at 9:30, saying he had an engagement." "What else did he say about this engagement?" "Nothing else." "Didn't give you any hint of where he was going? Who he was going to meet?" "He merely said he had an engagement." "And you didn't think knowing anything about it?" "No. Why? Did you think I did?" "I thought he might have said something." I switched back to tonight's doings. "What visitors did Wilson have today, not counting the one he shot?" "You'll have to pardon me," the secretary said, smiling apologetically. "I can't tell you that without Mr. Wilson's permission. I'm sorry." "Weren't some of the local powers here? Say Liu Yard or..." The secretary shook his head, repeating, "I'm sorry." "We won't fight over it." And I said we won't fight over it, giving it up and starting back toward the bedroom. The doctor came out, buttoning his overcoat. He will sleep now, he said hurriedly. Someone should stay with him. I shall be in the morning. I shall be back to see him. First thing in the morning. He ran downstairs. I went into the bedroom. The chief and the man who had questioned Mr. Wilson were standing by the bed. The chief grinned as if he was glad to see me. The other man scowled. Wilson was lying on his back, staring at the ceiling. That's about all there is, Noonan said. What shall we mosey along? I agreed and said good night to the old man. He said good night without looking at me. The secretary came in with the chauffeur, a tall, sunburned young husky man. The chief, the other sleuth, a policeman, actually a police lieutenant named McGraw, and I went downstairs and got into the chief's car. McGraw sat beside the driver. The chief and I sat in the back. We'll make the pinch along about daylight, Noonan explained as we rode. Whisper, he's got a joint over on King Street. He generally leaves there about daylight. We could crash the place, but that'd mean gunplay, and that's just about as easy as we can take him. We'll pick him up when he leaves. I wondered if he meant pick him up or pick him off, I asked. Got enough on him to make the rap stick? Enough? He laughed good-naturedly. If what the Wilson dame gave us ain't enough to stretch him, I'm a pickpocket. I thought of a couple of wisecracks to answer to that, but I kept them to myself. Chapter 6. Whisper's Joint. Our ride ended under the line of trees in a dark street not far from the center of town. We got out of the car and walked down to the corner. A burly man in a gray overcoat with a gray hat pulled down his eyes came to meet us. Whisper's Hep, the burly man told the chief. He phoned Donahue, and he's going to stay in his joint. If you think you can pull him out, try it, he says. Noonan chuckled, scratched an ear, and asked pleasantly, How many would you say was in there with him? 50, anyhow. Ah, now, there wouldn't be any that many, not at this time of the morning. The hell there wouldn't be, the burly man snarled. They've been drifting in since midnight. Is that so? A leak somewheres. Maybe you oughtn't to have let them in. Maybe I oughtn't. The burly man was angry. But I did what you told me. You said let anybody go, in or out, that wanted to. But then Whisper showed to pinch him? The chief asked. Well, yes, the burly man agreed, looking savagely at me. More men joined us as we held a talk fest. Everybody was in a bad humor, except for the chief. He seemed to enjoy it all. I didn't know why. Whisper's joint was a 3-story brick building in the middle of a block between two 2-story buildings. Floor of his joint was occupied by a cigar store that served as an entrance and a cover for the gambling establishment upstairs. Inside, if the burly man's misfortune was to be depended upon, Whisper had collected 100 friends, loaded for fight. Outside, Noonan's force was spread around the building, in the street in front, in the alley in back, and on the adjoining roofs. Well, boys, the chief said amiably after everybody had had his say, I don't reckon Whisper wants trouble any more than we do, or he'd have tried to shoot his way out before this. If he's got that many with him, though, I don't mind saying, I don't think he has not that many. The burly man said, The hell he ain't. So, if he don't want trouble, Noonan went on, maybe talking might do some good. You run over, Nick, and see if you can't argue with him into being peaceable. The burly man said, The hell I will. The phone then, the chief suggested. The burly man growled, That's more like it, and went away. When he came back, he looked completely satisfied. He says, he reported, Go to hell. Get the rest of the boys down here, Noonan said cheerfully. We'll knock it over as soon as it gets light. The burly Nick and I went round the chief while he made sure his men were properly placed. I didn't think much of them, a shabby, shifty-eyed crew with enthusiasm for the job ahead of them. No, I take that back. They really didn't have the enthusiasm required for the job. The sky became a faded gray. The chief, Nick, and I stopped in a plumber's doorway diagonally across the street from our target. Whisper's joint was dark, the upper windows blank, blinds down over the cigar store windows and door. I hate to start this without having Whisper here and without giving him a chance, Noonan said. He's not a bad kid, but there's no use in me trying to talk to him. He never did much like me. He looked over at me. I said nothing. You wouldn't want to take a stab at it, he asked. Yeah, I'll try it. That's fine of you. I'll certainly appreciate it if you will. You just see if you can talk him into coming along without any fuss. You know what to say, for his own good and all that, like it is. Yeah, I said, and I walked across to the cigar store, taking pains to let my hands be seen swinging empty at my sides. Day was still a little way off. The street was the color of smoke. My feet made a lot of noise on the pavement. I stopped in front of the door and knocked on the glass with a knuckle, not heavily. The green blind down inside the door made a mirror of the glass. In it, I saw two men moving up the other side of the street. No sound came from inside. I knocked harder, then slid my hand down to rattle the knob. Advice came from indoors. Get away from here while you're able. It was a muffled voice, but not a whisper. So, probably not Whisper's. I want to talk to Thaler, I said. Go talk to the landlord who sent you. You mean the lard can? Yeah. Go talk to that lard can that sent you. I'm not talking for Noonan. Is Thaler there? If Thaler's there, can he hear me? A pause. Then the muffled voice said, Yes. I'm the Continental op who tipped Dinah Brand off that Noonan was framing you, I said. I want 5 minutes to talk with you. I've got nothing to do with Noonan except to queer his racket. I'm alone. I'll drop my rod in the street if you say so. Let me in. I waited. It depended on whether the girl had got to him with the story of my interview of her. I waited what seemed a long time. The muffled voice said, When we open, come quick, and no stunts. All set. The latch clicked. I plunged in with the door. Across the street, a dozen guns emptied themselves. Glass shot from door and windows twinkled around us. Somebody tripped me. Fear gave me 3 brains and half a dozen eyes. I was in a tough spot. Noonan had slipped me in a pretty dose. These birds couldn't help thinking I was playing his game. I tumbled down, twisting round to face the door. My gun was in my hand by the time I hit the floor. Across the street, burly Nick had stepped out of a doorway to pump slugs at us with both hands. I steadied my gun arm on the floor. Nick's body showed over the front sight. I squeezed the gun. Nick stopped shooting. He crossed his guns on his chest and went down in a pile of sidewalk. Hands on my ankles dragged me back. The floor scrapped pieces of my chin and scraped those pieces right off. The door slammed shut. Some comedian said, Uh-huh, people don't like you. I sat up and shouted through the racket. I wasn't in on this. The shooting dwindled, stopped. The door and windows blinds were dotted with gray holes. A husky whisper said in the darkness, Todd, you and the slats keep an eye on things down here. The rest of us might as well go upstairs. We went through a room behind the store, into a passageway, up a flight of carpeted steps, and into a second-story room that held a green table banked for crap shooting. It was a small room, had no windows, and the lights were on. There were 5 of us. Thaler sat down and lit a cigarette. A small, dark young man with a face that was pretty in a chorus man, way up until you took another look at it, the thin, hard mouth. An angular blonde kid of no more than 20, in tweeds, sprawled on his back on a couch and blew cigarette smoke at the ceiling. Another boy, as blonde and as young, but not so angular, was busy straightening his scarlet tie, smoothing his yellow hair. A thin-faced man of 30, with little or no chin under his wide, loose mouth, wandered up and down the room, looking bored and humming. Rosy cheeks? I sat in a chair, 2 or 3 feet from Thaler's. How long is Noonan going to keep this up? He asked. There was no emotion in his hoarse, whispering voice, only a shade of annoyance. He's after you this trip, I said. I think he's going through with it. The gambler smiled a thin, contemptuous smile. He ought to know what a swell chance he's got of hanging a one-legged rap on me like that. He's not figuring on proving anything in court, I said. No? You're to be knocked off resisting arrest or trying to make a getaway. He won't need much of a case after that. He's getting tough in his old age. The thin lips curved in another smile. He didn't seem to think much of the fat chief's deadliness. Anytime he rubs me out, I deserve rubbing. What has he got against you? He's guessed I'm going to make a nuisance of myself. Too bad. Dinah told me you were a pretty good guy, except for kind of a scotch with a roll. I had a nice visit. Will you tell me what you know about Donald Wilson's killing? His wife plugged him. You saw her? I saw her the next second, with a gat in her hand. There's no good to either of us, I said. I don't know how far you've got cooked, rigged right. You could make it stick in court, maybe, but you'll not get a chance to make your play there. If Noonan takes you at all, he'll take you stiff. Give me the straight of it. I only need to pop the job. He dropped his cigarette on the floor, mashed it under his foot, and asked, You that hot? Give me your slant on it. I'm ready to make the pinch if I can get out of here. He lit another cigarette and asked, Mrs. Wilson said it was me that phoned her? Yeah, after Noonan had persuaded her. She believes now, maybe. You dropped Big Nick, he said. I'll take a chance on you. A man phoned me that night. I don't know him. Don't know who he was. He said Wilson had gone to Dinah's with a check for $5,000. What the hell did I care? But see, it was funny. Somebody I didn't know cracked it to me. So I went around. Dan stalled me away from the door. That was all right. But still, it was funny as hell. That guy phoned me. I went up the street and took a plant in a vestibule. I saw Mrs. Wilson's heap standing in the street, but I didn't know then it was hers or that she was in it. He came out pretty soon, walked down the street. I didn't see the shots. I heard them. Then this woman jumps out of the heap, and runs over to him. I knew she hadn't done the shooting. I ought to have beat it, but it was all pretty funny as hell. So when I saw the woman was Wilson's wife, I went over to them, trying to find out what it was all about. That was the break, see? So I had to make out for myself, in case something slipped. I strung the woman. That's the whole damn works of it, on the level. Thanks, I said. That's what I came for. Now the trick is to get me out of here without being mowed down. No trick at all, Thaler assured me. We go any time we want to. I want to now. If I were you, I'd go too. You've got Noonan pegged as a false alarm, but why take the chance? Make the sneak and keep undercover till noon, and his frame-up will be a washout. Thaler put his hand down his pants pocket and brought out a fat roll of paper. He counted off 100 or 2, some 50s, 20s, 10s, and held them out to the chinless man, saying, Buy us a getaway, Jerry, and you don't have to give anybody any more dough than he's used to. Jerry took the money, picked up a hat from the table, and strolled out. Half an hour later, he returned and gave some bills back to Thaler, saying casually, "We wait in the kitchen till we get the office." We went down to the kitchen. It was dark there. More men joined us. Presently, something hit the floor. Jerry opened the door, and we went down 3 steps into the backyard. It was almost full daylight. There were 10 of us in the party. "This all?" I asked Thaler. He nodded. "Nick said there were 50 of you." 50 of us stand off that crummy force," he sneered. All uniformed copper held back the gate open, muttered nervously, "Hurry it up, boys. Hurry up, please." I was willing to hurry, but nobody else paid any attention to him. We walked across the alley, were beckoned through another gate by a big man in brown, passed through the house out onto the next street, and climbed into a black automobile that stood the curb. One of the blonde boys drove. He knew what speed was. I said I wanted to be dropped off somewhere in the neighborhood of the Great Western Hotel. The driver looked at Whisper, who nodded. 5 minutes later, I got out in front of my hotel. "See you later," the gambler whispered, and the car slid away. The last I saw of it, its police department license plate vanishing around the corner. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 6. I think I'm really liking this book. I hope you are too. It has just enough gangster in it, just enough mystery, and just enough of that gangster, crooked cop town violence to make it interesting. Okay, my friends, until tomorrow night, this has been Indiana Holmes. Love to you all. See you tomorrow night at 6. Bye-bye.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.